Well, first of all, I think that business leaders throughout the world should be involved in more than just making money and running businesses. And we have a number of organizations that are trying to rally business leaders in a lot of different fields, whether it's global warming issues or whether it's crises issues. And obviously, when this issue arose here in Ukraine, a number of business leaders in Russia, a number of business leaders in Ukraine, a number of international business leaders, felt very strongly that they should speak out. And if there was any way we could help, obviously we'd be willing to help. I think one of the most important elements of it was that in Russia there is not a lot of freedom of speech, and yet if you talk to individual business leaders, almost every single business leader I've spoken to felt that the Russian position, their leader's position was not a correct position, and some of them were, I think, brave enough to speak out and be willing to sign quite a strong statement. A lot of others, that I spoke with, felt very strongly that the way Russia was moving was the wrong one, but were not willing to speak out. As business leaders, we just felt it was, it was just obviously on a global basis incredibly sad that when the Berlin Wall came down, it was a historic time. We all felt that the future was going to be a very different one, and that Russia and the West would be, Russia would maybe join the European Union. We would live together, trade together, marry together, play together. And I think for a lot of Russian, the better educated Russian people, they still want that. For a lot of Russian people, the news that is reported there is, it's very difficult for them to understand any view except for what is actually coming out of Putin's office. I mean, there's a very, very one-sided view of the situation. So that's what's happened.
I'm really interested, Richard, in your portrayal of the perspective of the Russian business leaders you spoke to. You said there were some who said they agreed with you, but they were afraid. What are they afraid of? What kind of a pressure did you sense your Russian business partners, colleagues, friends are under right now?
Russia, unlike most other countries in the world, the Kremlin does not have that closer relationship with the majority of Russian businesses. They are a law unto themselves. But it does have an inordinate amount of power over whether Russian businesses are successful or whether they're not successful. And I've spoken with a Russian businessman who runs a big bank in Russia, and he 100% believes that this approach is not a good approach for his country and for Europe. But he's frightened that his business will suffer if he speaks out. But we had the biggest car producer, the biggest dairy producer. A lot of very considerable names who actually were willing to speak out, and they were all self-made men, self-made women who'd built their businesses from scratch, who I suspect didn't feel that that they had to be nice to the Kremlin because their businesses stood on their own 2 feet, who were willing to say, let's deal with this diplomatically. And I think, listening to the panel earlier, war is, I mean, further war is not going to do anybody any good. It's certainly not, I think, going to do Ukraine any good. And I think we've got to do everything we can to make this diplomatic initiative succeed. Russia has a lot of might, and if this does not succeed, I'm afraid you are likely to see further cities falling, and that is not in Ukraine's interest, and so I think whatever happens, it's really important to do everything we can to make this diplomatic initiative succeed.
On an earlier panel, we heard from Ruslan Ginsburg of the Russian Academy of Sciences that he sort of warned that there's a pathological anti-Westernism rising in Russia. Did you encounter that in putting together this group?
I think that, obviously it's very important to try to understand the other side and why they're behaving in the way they're behaving. And there's no question that President Putin feels unloved, and he felt that when he got re-elected, that he did not get a warm feeling from the West. And I think when we look at it historically, it could well be that the West made some mistakes in their dealings with Russia.
You think if Putin had felt more loved by Western leaders, none of this would have been happening?
I see things quite simplistically, and I think yes. I think if we had made a bigger effort with Russia to try to bring them into the fold, if Europe had actually tried to encourage Russia to make certain changes, where Russia could have become part of Europe some years ago, some of this may not have happened. I may be being naive, but I just think sometimes a lot of things like this actually boil up based on personal relationships, and one always thinks of the big decisions being made for big reasons, but it can come down to personal decisions, personal relationships. So there may be some fault from the European side as well as from the Russian side. But I think we are where we are now, and he has incredible control of the press in Russia. The Kremlin does, and I did a long interview with a Russian TV station, and the questions I was asked, made it very, very clear that the people in Russia had a very distorted view, I think, of
what surprised you of the questions you were asked?
Oh, it was things like, so why have the West not released the information which will prove that the Malaysian plane that was shot down, was not shot down by Russia? Why are they hiding it? It was, question after question after question like that. And I was trying, to be, we're trying to see whether we can help.
Trying to be a sunny optimist?
No, we were trying to be diplomatic and trying to bridge the gap between Ukraine and Russia and see if we could be helpful. So, so even in that situation, I was being asked questions that were very pointed questions, and the interviewer almost the way he asked she asked the questions, you almost felt that she maybe believed what she was asking, which was surprising. But they have been very clever in giving a very distorted viewpoint. And now the danger for Ukraine is if the Russian people believe all this, if they believe that Ukraine is full of Nazis, or if they believe all these things, then then it makes it that much easier for him to justify moving on to other cities, and all I'm saying is I do think Ukrainians should support their president in trying to get a peace. Now,
have you been surprised? Interesting, that experience you've just described. Have you been surprised by the effectiveness of Russian state propaganda?
Yes, I mean, I'm very surprised. I think, and of course, President Putin's popularity has doubled or tripled since this, which again is worrying, because if you go to war and your popularity goes up, there's a danger that you'll get to like it. So it has been very effective, partly through fear, partly. I mean, anyway, they've conducted quite a frightening propaganda war there.
You referred, Richard, to the earlier period after the collapse of the Soviet Union, when it looked as if there were going to be a lot of opportunities for friendship and cooperation. And I think a lot of us really believed that business was going to be an essential bridge. You probably remember Tom Friedman's argument about his Big Mac theory of peace, that no two countries that both had a McDonald's had ever gone to war. And he believed that was never going to happen because the power of consumer capitalism. So that was violated in the Georgian conflict in 2008, and we've seen it violated again. Are you disappointed and maybe surprised by the way in which, capitalism has failed to be a bridge?
Yes, and definitely. I mean, the sad thing is, I think if it had been given another 10 years, I don't think it could ever have happened. I mean, the wonderful thing about the European Union is
Russia would have been richer. Another 10 years, and Russians would be sort of beyond
another 10
this.
years. I think there would be that many more intermarriages, that many more, business connections, that many more friendships being built. I mean, in the European Union, the idea of Germany ever going to war with France, or France ever going to war with Britain, it's just inconceivable. And if only, Russia could have been brought into the European Union, some years ago. I mean, Russian people, individuals in Russia, they're as European as any of us, and there are bigger problems in this world for us to confront than fighting each other. We have to hope that if peace can now be brought to East Ukraine, that we can draw a line. I mean, I know this is difficult to say this in Ukraine, but at some stage we're going to have to draw a line in the sand and try to get back to where we were a year ago, and start building relationships up again with Russians.
So does that mean you think the Ukrainians should give up on Crimea? That's gone?
I mean, for the time being, realistically, I think Crimea is unlikely, likely to come back again. I mean, the sad thing is that if say Crimea and a little bit of East Ukraine, could have had, set up their. Oh, I don't know. I mean, I think realistically, it seems unlikely that it's going to be part of Ukraine again. For the time being.
Well, Viktor still plans to have a Yalta meeting in Crimea, right? Yeah. I'm going to ask Richard one more question and then throw it open to questions from the audience. So we've been talking, and you've been working on ways that business relationships can be a path to peace. We heard from the President of the European Parliament, Martin Schulz, this morning, that he understands, European leaders understand, they will have to, are having to take a bit of an economic hit because of this conflict, that there's no way out. Do you agree with that? And do you think that European business as well is willing to actually pay an economic price?
Yes, I think as long as the sanctions have real effect, then I think European business leaders are willing to accept that. I mean, I think nobody in Europe wants to see conflict in Europe, and if it takes pain for business people, then business people are certainly happy to accept that pain.
Okay. Question? Did I see someone raising their hand? I have more questions, but I want to give other people a chance if they have something to ask. Please, Javier.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for your statement. It's not the first time that you are here. Thank you very much for coming. Now, the question to a personality like you, an entrepreneur, a global entrepreneur with a philanthropic element in your portfolio, let's put it that way. You look at this country, you look to this part, and you talk to your people, you see the debate has taken place before, you have listened to the president this morning. Would you be very confused and say, well, it's too early to invest in this country? It requires more time before I clarify if I put money in this country. You expect more clarity in the political direction. Elections are going to take place in October. Still, we don't know how it is resolved, what is going to be. We have the experience of parliaments which are not very effective. What would be your reaction at this point? Would you put your money, bet your money here, or you will wait to see how things evolve?
I don't think that the global community can afford to wait. I mean, I think Ukraine needs investment. It needs support. And, from Virgin's point of view, if we can see opportunities, or if people have opportunities for us to invest, we'd be very happy to invest today. And through investment, and I think through trade, this sort of thing shouldn't happen. But anyway, it has, but hopefully, hopefully by Ukraine needs to get back on its feet again as soon as possible, and therefore it needs business leaders all over the world to do their bit in investing in Ukraine, and I'm happy to play that part.
Okay, that's great. I look forward to the next set of Virgin ventures in Ukraine. I think we'd all like to fly Virgin to Ukraine, wouldn't we? Yeah.
You would fly?
I would fly
Okay.
Virgin to
All
Ukraine.
right.
Yeah, we'll go together on your inaugural flight. Прошу.
Thank you. Orisa Lutsevich, Chatham House. And my question links to what was said before, but in the light of an impact investment and social enterprise. You are communicating with a very vibrant group of entrepreneurs in Africa and globally, where they are providing solutions to shortages of finance and services that the states are failing to provide globally now. Do you think it's a good time now to advise Ukrainian government to bring together a group of vibrant entrepreneurs, global and Ukrainian, and try to basically provide resources to young people, but also to successful entrepreneurs to establish ventures that will solve huge social problems in Donbass, that will have the soft power that we were talking about, because I do believe they should be part of the solution. What is your opinion on that?
No, I think it's a very good idea, and again, we'd be happy to play a part in something like that. In the UK, we've sort of campaigned for our government to, instead of just giving university loans, to give loans to entrepreneurs who've got good ideas for business, sometimes instead of going to university. And the government have adopted that, and in the last couple of years, tens of thousands of loans have been given to young people to start their businesses by government, and then businesses like Virgin have helped find mentors and help them get set up. I don't know whether anything like that exists in Ukraine, but I think it definitely is working in the UK and something to be considered for Ukraine.
Okay, and any other social entrepreneurship ideas for Ukraine that you'd like to do here?
We have schools of entrepreneurship, which we've set up in South Africa and in Jamaica and in one or two other places where, we help. That may be something we could consider for Ukraine. But anyway, let's see.
Okay, thank you. More questions? Please, right here.
Thank you for your presentation, and I wanted to applaud the initiative and the leadership you've taken to advocate for peace. And there is responsibility of business leaders in this complex world to be part of that conversation. I represent the World Economic Forum. My name is Andrew Chicoin, and I'm wondering in the wider world, this year, if you look around, what dominates the news is all the geopolitical tensions. If we look back, it was financial crisis, the Eurozone crisis. Now it just seems to be conflict everywhere. And you're a global company, and how do you see business contributing on the entire global stage to try to resolve this? So there's inequality, there's economic tension, and all that seems to be boiling. What do you believe is the way out?
Okay, an easy question for you there.
Well, a few years ago, we decided that we would see if we could set up a group of global elders led by Nelson Mandela and Graça Machel, his wife, and they agreed to be the founding elders. And obviously now Mandela's no longer there. Kofi Annan chairs this group. And Mandela appointed the 12 men and women that he most respected in the world. So people like Mary Robinson, President Carter, Archbishop Tutu, and Arti Madasari, and
it's a pretty great group to be in.
Yeah, and they're going into conflict regions and trying to see if they can help resolve conflicts. And then subsequent to that, we set up something called the B Team, which is Mohammed Yunus, Paul Pullman from Unilever, Ariana Huffington. Anyway, a group of concerned business leaders, and so in some conflicts, we use the business team leaders to try to get involved and see if they can come up with business ideas to try to resolve them. In other conflicts, it's the elders that will go in and try to knock heads together and try to resolve them. When Kenya was falling apart with the civil war, Kofi Annan went there with Archbishop Tutu and Graça Machel, and they convened they got the president and his rival together, and they managed to get a coalition government formed. So, the United Nations is such an enormous organization, it has difficulty making decisions. So I think having organizations like this do give a slightly better chance for conflicts to get resolved. The difficulty with this particular conflict here is, it is quite difficult for Putin to get to see Putin, to get to sit him down and try to help bridge gaps. But we'll keep trying if it's necessary.
Is the B Team trying to get to see Putin to talk to him about Ukraine?
Yes, and we're seeing whether or not a meeting can be arranged.
And what will you say to him? Let's imagine he calls up and says, "You gave a great talk in Kyiv, Richard. Come up to Moscow and see me." What will you guys say?
I think it slightly depends when and if the meeting takes place. Obviously, I think my emotional thing I would say to him is roughly what I've been saying in the last half an hour, and that is, let's not get back into a Cold War situation again. We want to trade with your country. We want to we want to be friends, but if there's a specific situation in East Ukraine that that we could help on. I mean, for instance, okay, you know, Scotland may break away from England. It's not going to be, or from Great Britain. You know, we'll still be, if it does break away, we'll still trade together. We'll still be friends together. We'll you know, and you know, so you know, maybe with part of East Ukraine, if you were to say, you know, in 5 years' time, you know, if Putin, if you're really right, and if the people really want to have their independence, you know, they should have a referendum in 5 years' time when it's, you know, when we're 5 years away from the war and the conflict. You know, that may be, you know, I mean, just trying to come up with a business compromise to each situation that that avoids conflict, avoids war. And that's the kind of thing you know, I think we as business people, I think, are equipped to do, and to look at it in a pragmatic way that doesn't involve people being killed and maimed, and you know, and all the horrors of war.
Okay, I've been told that our time is at an end, so I'm going to ask you one final, very quick, action-oriented question. There are a lot of business people in the room here. What's the one thing you would advise them to do? What's a concrete thing? I'm a business person. I'm listening to you. I am seized by the idea. What can I do?
Let me think. One thing. Women are very powerful, powerful in war situations and in resolving war situations. And you know, Putin was quite clever sending his humanitarian vehicles to East Ukraine, or anyway, PR-wise, back in his home country. You know, maybe send an army of women without arms, just women to the port. Which is the port city left?
Mariupol.
Yeah. You know, I mean, have 100,000 women go there. You know, maybe all dressed in white, and you know, it's those that kind of gesture which can turn the corner in a conflict at this stage. I'm not sure sending more arms there is the answer. I think right now it needs people need to know that the women of Ukraine want to see peace.
Okay, Victor, you have your idea. Send 100,000 Ukrainian women to Mariupol. Oh, 100,000 virgins? Victor thinks? Okay.
They will obviously have to wear white. I'm going to go to that saying. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very, very much, Richard. And thank you for your caring so much and thinking in creative ways to try to get us past this terrible impasse.